Well, g'day everybody, where's Wally here? I thought I might have a go at these BallBusters guys. Let's see what they've got.
Do worry about not earning enough money. I'll be honest, smash the Super Chat and PayPal link. I've got a bill on the way, I keep telling people.
Well, it saddens me to see you, like so many other fliffs, are suffering financially. Maybe you need to take a leaf out of young Mitchell's book. Mitchell from Australia, he's come up with a plan. A plan so cunning that you could pin a tail on it and call it a fox. He's going to charge Globies to talk to him.
I've got 5,000 Australian dollars for 1 hour, so that's a great discount rate for 2 hours.
Dad, Mitchell's charging a fee for debates.
Nah. Now hang on, Steve. What's he asking?
5,000 an hour.
Tell him he's dreaming.
Yeah, I'm sure you're onto a winner there, Mitchell. Actually, mate, don't quit your day job, will you?
We're going to be making the money, and there's no shame in that. Because, like I said, this is my full-time job now. As of yesterday, I no longer have employment.
But yeah, that's about the only stress I suffer. I'm not a big enough YouTuber to support myself, which means e-begging, which is embarrassing.
Nathan, you're e-begging. Wow, you're doing this for money. Really nice of you to admit that. See, I'm not monetized. This actually costs me money to make content. Just ask Mitchell, who bought his children roller skates for Christmas? Wally did.
One link, another link, and another link, and another link, and then half. And that's the southern cup.
That's south?
South.
That's south?
South.
Good work, you just earned $50. What are you going to spend it on?
Roller skates.
Roller skates.
And adorable Miss Six took on the hardest job of all, but she nailed it correctly and she pointed out where the SCP is. Well done. Remember that, Mitchell, when little Miss Six opens her box on Christmas Day and throws her arms around your neck and says, "Thank you, Daddy, for the new Kates"? Wally paid for them. I didn't have to. The extra $50 was a gift, pure and simple.
Oh no, they told me after I pointed out that they haven't got an R value that you're going to have to assume a globe to get a straight line, baseline to do an angle measurement with a sextant. They just said you're going to need a globe for that. No, I recognise what's occurring. Yeah? They're imitating us. All right, why? Well, I take that as a compliment. Highest form of flattery, in fact.
Well, Nathan, he seems to be having a problem telling the difference between flattery and mockery. Let me help you out, mate. It's not flattery.
But is that "you're going to need a globe for that" attached to a devastating argument that I'm losing sleep over?
Well, it seems Nathan is losing sleep over this. He says he isn't, but the number of times he repeats that claim...
Because that's really going to cost me some sleep.
...seems to make one suspect he really is.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it's been terrible. I've been tossing and turning over "you're going to need a globe for that" rebuttal. I mean, I really have been losing sleep over this. I'm sure you all agree. And done with lots of people saying it. Why? Well, because our devastating argument, Black Swan...
What's this I hear about a black swan? What's that all about? Let's have a look, shall we? BLMSB 69 footage. Okay. Right place, Miramar Beach. Couple of foot off the water. Looks about right. Well, the horizon is clearly in front of both of those oil platforms. Oh, here's someone else's footage. Charter boat? What charter boat? Oh, that charter boat. The one on the horizon and clearly in front of both platforms. So what gives, guys? All I see is an horizon apparently close to where we would expect it to be every day. Don't you guys find this kind of boring? At least you could have found a rare, once every 5 year crazy refraction day to make it a little more entertaining for us. Nothing to see here. Black Swan is busted. It's dead. Look, I don't know what galahs are parroting on about this black swan as the saviour of flat earth, but from here, it's a dead duck. Its goose is cooked. This black swan couldn't debunk R if you put 1,000,000 volts through it. It's passed on. The swan is no more. He has ceased to be. He's expired. He's gone to meet his maker. He's a stiff, bereft of life. He rests in peace. If you hadn't nailed him to the perch, he'd be pushing up daisies. His metabolic processes are now history. He's off his twig. He's kicked the bucket. He's shuffled off his mortal coil. He's run down the curtain and joined the bleeding choir invisible. This is an ex-Black Swan.
With us saying you're going to need R from that, for that. Yeah, we all got together at the behest of Mitchell to say you're going to need R from that, and in some cases he edited it out of videos. Well, you're going to need R for that has a devastating argument attached. When they just say you're going to need a globe for that, that is literally just them chanting that you're going to need a globe for that. Because there's no argument attached to that. It's just chanting.
Oh, and Nathan, we most certainly did point out the preceding condition. Just why do you think we're all laughing at Flat Earth and their hilarious use of the celestial navigation on a flat Earth? Because I had just shown celestial navigation can't work on a flat Earth. You guys need to know the height of the target to be able to calculate the distance to the GP. Whereas on a globe, all we need to know is the angle, which is measured by the sextant, and from the angle we look up the GP in the almanac, calculate the angular difference from our zenith to the GP, and we simply multiply that by 60 nautical miles per degree, and voila, we have the range, the distance from us to the GP. So tell us, how do you get the distance once you've measured the angle to the celestial object? I want to know. Seriously, I actually want to know. Well, here we go. Mitchell, I'll dumb this down for you even lower. So low that we're in Death Valley, which is appropriate for flat Earth, you know, dying and all. So it seems if you're making a video about proving R or the globe, you can't even show an image of the globe at all, or they'll just go, begging the question. I mean, flatties start with a flat level plane all the time, and nobody claims begging the question for them, do they? Well, I mean, I can't even mention my R was 2% from the accepted value. Oh, wait. You know what? I've gone and done it again, haven't I? Guys, have a look at this for a second. And thanks to whoever showed this version 1, where I showed the globe for illustration purposes only, seems you can't even put up the answer at the start either. Oh, great. You know what? I just did it again, didn't I? I said globe. I showed Earth curve. Too soon. Oh, great. Guys, look over here.
I think they're claiming they've got R, that's the point. Mitchell, are you there?
No, I've got that bit. How are they claiming to have derived it?
What they did, I know it's noisy, what they did was Wolfie and a other lad, Wally, they both looked at geocentric satellites at the same time, and they both made 2 0-degree horizontals, but one of those horizontals is different from the other horizontals. It's basically 2 kind of dodgy chords, and then they put a kind of they made 2 dodgy chords, and they tilted one of them, and then they brought zeniths to the center of it.
You're talking about Wolfie 6020?
Yeah, well, it wasn't. It was him and another guy called.
Oh God, Wolfie 6020 is a Wally.
No, QE. Wolfie, he's a top bloke. I'm the Wally. Okay, hang on.
That boy is scary stupid. He's dumber than Bob, the pseudoscience fallacy guy, Bob Rooney. Yeah. I haven't heard from Wolf. Does Wolfie still have a channel?
Yeah.
Really?
Still on the go. Yep.
I'm sorry. I don't see him pop up anywhere. And after 2016, where I drug him and all his subscribers around his channel by the short hairs, there's some really stupid people over there.
Yeah, some real boneheads who use past tense words like drug. Real knuckle druggers they are.
Right, that was going to be my next question. Where did they get this straight line to get the angle that they measured?
Can I put some context to this? This is an issue.
I was coming to you next, Mitchell. Just before you put context to it, correct me if I'm wrong. I recognise this picture. Wasn't this put right at the beginning of your video, Mitch, where you actually have the guy saying, "Well, yeah, I'll have to assume a sphere." Correct me if I'm wrong.
I know, Mitchell, what you're going to say about this. You're presuming R. Well, fair cop. I am kind of presuming R in this case. You are wrong. Well, no, you're right. Mitchell is wrong to put the wrong sound grab out there. Now, this sound grab relates to an earlier thing I did measuring the height of a satellite, which I knew was relying on R and which I said was relying on R. So that doesn't really relate to this one, does it?
While you're doing that, I can do a nice little concise plug for you, Mitchell. So one of the things I love about Mitchell from Australia YouTube channel, subscribe today, is that the consistency of what's being put out is beautiful. It's really short, it's really concise.
And it's really none of those things. His goes for over an hour, is repetitive, goes over the same point multiple times, with long gaps and pauses, and is really repetitive.
Wait a second, I think I might have it. Hold on a second. Is that good?
It's issues like this that are really triggering for the global believers because, yeah, obviously I get a lot of trolls on my channel, and that's not something that everyone likes, but I enjoy it because it exposes.
You enjoy it? Then why did you block me even though I bought the highest Patreon level? Scared, I guess, hey?
You get it, Wally.
Horizontal lines. And this is the second rendition of what he's trying to prove the radius value, the R value, because I'm saying you can't prove the radius value without first presupposing that it's on a ball, presupposing you've got the R value to begin with. And this is the second rendition. So what have we got there? So it is still, he's done this with two, he calls them uber sextants.
Because they're doing exactly what a sextant does, only 3 orders of magnitude better. That's 1,000 times more accurate, mate. Let's listen to Mitchell.
This is from Britannica, Navigation Technology Marine Charts. In the hands of the practiced observer, the modern sextant can be used to measure elevation angles within an accuracy of 10 seconds of arc. That is close enough to determine a ship's north-south position within a few hundred meters. That is extremely accurate.
See, they've brought this frame shift correction stuff in, which does make sense because they're viewing a geostationary satellite, apparently.
Oh, they are?
QE, you just called us clowns. Now you admit that you have no idea what's going on. That kind of makes you the ringmaster here, doesn't it, QE?
From 2 different locations that aren't quite in alignment. So this bit makes sense, and I can understand how they get to it.
Well, props to you, Adam. At least you got that bit right.
Okay, so which means technically this is incorrect, as Brian would attest, because it's the curved surface that's 281.91, not the Sagitta line. But anyway...
You mean chord line, Adam, not Sagitta. But anyway, you do get it right later on. The distance along the arc is 281.91 kilometres, and along the chord is just 23 metres shorter. That's close enough for me.
This is how they're going to calculate R, fundamentally, you see, that relationship between the circumferential distance and the angle that the amount of distance creates on a sphere. That's what the sine calculations they do on the previous ones is doing, you see. So, yeah, this is a bit naughty.
Nothing dodgy going on here. I have 2 verticals and 2 horizontals, and from the angles of the telescopes, the verticals must be diverging upwards. The verticals are provably not parallel, and Mitchell does not like that fact one little bit.
You get it, Wally.
From the centre of the Earth between Dubbo and Sydney, and that's how they then work it.
This requires that they beg the question twice.
Yeah,
to the same conclusion.
Twice? I begged the question that the telescope bases were as flat as and parallel, and how well did that work out? It didn't. So show me where I used R up until this point, Mitchell, or Nathan, or QE. No point asking or QE. He still hasn't caught up yet. He may never. Too much knuckle drugging, I reckon.
You get it, Wally.
Well, basically, they made 2 0 degrees horizontals, 2 absolute horizontals for their telescopes. And then they claimed one of those horizontals wasn't horizontal. And that's the basics of it.
Ah, Brian, you missed the fact that both horizontals are still horizontal at each location. But because the 2 sight lines to the same geostationary satellite make different angles to those verticals, the only conclusion is that the horizontals are not parallel. It is simple geometry.
They're claiming to see things that would be too small to see if they existed, which they can't.
We can see the sunlight reflecting off the satellite, but we never claim to be able to resolve the detail of the satellite. We only need 1 pixel after all.
But I don't see how an elevation this difference can take something that was supposedly 0 degrees horizontal and make it less than 0 degrees horizontal, make it a straight slope. How did they get a slope? No, did it? They have to make it up as they go along.
Yeah, squaring the circle in a square peg in a round hole, as you put it, is a good way of phrasing it.
No, it isn't.
I think Mitch dealt with this perfectly.
No, he didn't.
In other words, we get this on debate occasionally when we point out that they're just begging the question when they start by assuming that they're on a sphere.
Which I didn't.
I'll normally literally beg us. Let them beg the question. Oh, just let me beg. I've got to beg the question a little bit.
Only to say I started assuming flat.
Well, in the disclaimer that Mitch cut out, I was like, well, you might say I'd have to assume a sphere to have my triangle go to the centre of a sphere that I'm going to get to within 2% of.
Out of context disclaimer much, Mitch.
Well, yeah, I have got to beg the question. So now watch me beg the question.
Which I didn't.
Then it's okay to go forth with the logical fallacy. No, you bunch of dicks.
In the words of Meatloaf, you took the words right out of my mouth.
I can't. I'm not even going to comment on it, man, because it's such a farce. There's more than, well, there's two begging the question fallacies, but there's a lot more, mathematically speaking.
Oh, well, do tell, Mr. QE, or are you just saying words again?
On the use of a ball is basically you put the stars out to infinity. So they're so far away that the distance you are on the Earth between each point has no bearing on the angular change. The only bearing on angular change is the amount of curvature you experience over that distance.
Boy, golly, I think he's got it. Okay, Adam, you see here is a still from right before the satellites blink out. The background stars, you see them? Well, I can use them if you wish. In fact, I might just redo it all over again using the stars. That'd be real neato, hey, mister?
I mean, fundamentally, look, those things are up there, they filmed them. So wherever they are, how high they are, whatever, I don't want to get into, I'll quote their numbers.
Two right there up there. The ISS, videoed in silhouette against the moon or the sun. There is even a website telling you when you'll have a transit at your location. And not just the transit, Astronomy Live gets the ISS when it's dark but still in the sunlight 400 k's above us. Now, that's got to be worth 3 Bitcoin, that fact alone.
Consequences, if you do the calculation using Uncle Bubby's maths, yeah? So do you know the one I'm talking about, where you've got the two angles and we're trying to ascertain the height of the mountain?
Yes.
So if we use that same principle, but we know the height of the mountain, then we can actually calculate what the angular change should be from, if we know it at position A, what it should be at position B. And we must compensate for that because it's physical. And that turns out to be just virtually 0.6 of a degree, which, as you can see, is a quarter of their...
Well, fair play to Adam. He gave this a go, but he did mess up a little bit. Now, I will go over the diagram Adam presented just a few days later. Now, while these guys scramble to find something to debunk me, they haven't yet.
And they move the angle down to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. You have to put the stars at an infinite distance to stop the balls up that will occur if they're at a fixed distance. So they're just pushed off to infinity to stop that error. In this case, as soon as he said geostationary, I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. When you move your presupposed angle measurement to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, you've got to have infinite stars. How much of a difference does that make to that tiny little angle that they're justifying between those two locations?
Okay, Nathan, how much? Well, I did calculate it, didn't I?
Turns out to be point what? I missed the last bit.
0.5744 of a degree. These numbers are subject to slight change. There might be because they've used a slightly different alpha, I think.
And the difference is approximately 25%, did you say?
Yeah, any error I'd stand by would be negligible, so I'd stand by the 0.6.
There is only one error I found, Adam, and that is if you did indeed calculated the angle from Dubbo back to the GP of the satellite, then your begging the question flat Earth distance has to be 53,614 kilometres. Now, if you add to that the 282 kilometres, and then you convert it to miles because you guys like miles, then Sydney to the GP is 33,489 miles. If we look at that on a flat map, so Adam has from Sydney to the GP as 33,494 miles, Therefore, the whole disk of the pizza world must be around 150,000 miles across. Oopsies. So how does that work on a globe Earth? Super easy, barely an inconvenience. Walter Bisland's Earth curve calculator shows the zenith line from the GP to the satellite is leaning away at around 51 degrees. So that works out quite nicely when done to scale. The viewing angle is correct too.
Of a degree of
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we, notwithstanding Brian's overriding point, which is when it's not a sagittar, I've forgotten the word. Is it a sagittar that they're drawing across?
Yeah, that's the bottom of the isosceles triangle. Yeah.
No. That is a chord line across the base of the triangle.
I was trying to calculate what the actual distance would be, you see, across that chord. So no, ignore me. It's a chord that they're creating.
That's perfect. That's perfect, because I can just back Brian's point, which is to say that when you're taking that top of the triangle now with the other 2 points, the other point being at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, it doesn't match the arc length over the top of it. That chord length, they're deriving that, doesn't give you the same value when you've got the actual arc over the top, the curve of the spherical Earth they're assuming in the first place to get a centre of it. Well, that's suddenly missing. It's got a flat top to it, right, Brian?
So I multiply the kilometres by 100 to get metres. You got that, Nathan? And this calculator shows the chord is a mere 23 metres shorter than the arc. I guess that's busted the different length argument. Sorry, guys. Nathan, did you check Adam's working? He is a bit wrong. What he was trying to calculate is actually only 0.1 degree. And guess what? I measured using the background reference stars 0.074 degrees. Well, that's close enough for me. And guess what? I also allowed for that in my calculations. This is kind of embarrassing for you lot, isn't it?
You get it, Wally.
The measurements aren't subject to just rotation or effect of curvature, because what they're not measuring is stars, which are off into infinity in their model.
Oh, you really want me to use the background stars then? They are right there, you know. Are you really sure? Because none of this has worked in your favour yet, has it?
That's perfect. Therefore, at this point, full stop, you've debunked it.
Well, no, you haven't. I just pointed out that all your debunk points are all bunk, and I'm still undebunked.
You get it, Wally.
For the initial premises, which was highlighted by Mitch in the first place, they need to beg the question and assume they're standing on a spherical surface to derive any of these nonsense chords that don't match the arc lengths and have a geostationary satellite utilization, when in fact, to beg the question in the first place, you must push the distance out to infinity for those stars, which you're not doing, giving you a 25% error.
You're wrong.
So it's a complete balls up. I mean, it's a complete sham. One more point. One more last point. They can't even measure the angle on a globe.
Says you. I could be measuring from a plumb line. You plum. You just say that I need a horizontal baseline. Not that you need one, but pray tell, just how long a baseline is acceptable to you plums? I'm asking for a friend. What, 1 centimetre? 1 metre? 1 kilometre? 100 kilometres? What would actually be acceptable?
To make any of these claims requires that they take 2 straight lines, which they haven't got.
Brilliant. That's awesome. That's not to say don't stop trying. This is the second rendition. Do you want to go for a third rendition, Wally and co?
Oh, I most certainly will. And remember, when it comes your way, you asked for it.
It's giving us a lot of great content, because it's just showing the length that you're trying to go to measure or calculate the R value. It is not obtainable. But keep trying.
Actually, Mitchell, I'm only going to these great lengths to explain this to you, and for free. Thanks, mate. You see, mate, everyone else gets it. You don't. Like the other day when I measured the height of the ISS from the ISS using stereoscopic vision. That was awesome. And the footage of Outback Australia was striking, wasn't it? And the ISS went straight over you too, but unfortunately there was a little bit of cloud at yours, as you would know. I wonder why you guys don't try to catch out the ISS live feed as it passes overhead. You should actually include this in your daily housekeeping, Nathan. Does the ISS live feed match reality today? Oh, it does. Okay, we'll try again tomorrow. I'd love to see you guys do that and fail every single time.
If you do keep trying and your starting point is to beg the question, don't waste my time with that shite.
If all you can say to debunk me is begging the question, when all I'm begging was flat, then don't bother me with that shite excuse, Nathan.
Obviously, Mitch is encouraging that. If you're going to beg the question, you'll just get bitch slapped off your presupposed spherical Earth before you've even got past the first breath.
Just as well I didn't do that then, hey Nathan?
Sorry, Mitch. I was saying, Mitch, I think in your video, didn't he get up to claiming 9 Bitcoins with different ways, with it, let's say within this, of proving his ball?
Yeah, he's adding on some Bitcoins. He's got some other things in the video, but we're...
9 only? Well, the list has grown a bit since then, let me tell you.
We don't need to go into that. The bottom line is they're trying, desperately trying, to show us that they have an R value. But in the first instance, they are begging R to begin with. In every single claim that they think they can measure the R value, they can calculate an R value, they just beg the question. That's what Nathan is highlighting right here.
And yet, Mitchell, you are unable to point to where in this proof, not the original one from Western Australia, this one, Mitchell, version 2, in this proof, as I have said many times, the only begging the question I am doing is assuming that the horizontals are flat and parallel, which turns out a little later they cannot be.
You get it, Wally.
But once again, I'm not discouraging Wally. Please go to the Flat Earth debates and just see what happens. Try and claim the 3 Bitcoin that you think you're owed and see what happens.
Just a little clarity to that. There isn't a case that you'll come to me for Bitcoin. I haven't got a pot to piss in, right? EITRH is offered with terms 2 Bitcoin, I believe it is.
Nope, it's 3.
If you can present fair Earth proof. However, there are terms, one of which is you've got to download the app.
Done that weeks ago.
And there's a certain amount of consumption of things on the app, I can't remember the exact detail, that you'd have to do and show that you've done in order for you to qualify to attempt to get the Bitcoin.
Yep, watched every day for 2 weeks, and man, is that hard. I keep falling asleep. That flat Earth stuff is so boring.
Me, I'm just a gatekeeper. You know, people come by me because Dave says, okay, go and run this by Flat Earth debate team and see what they've got to say about it.
Wow, you're the gatekeeper? Really? But you literally have no idea about the number of Bitcoin on offer even.
Now, in this case, because I've already seen it on your 5-minute summary of it, Mitch, I know that this wouldn't last 5 seconds on the debate because it starts with the assumption of the very thing it's trying to prove.
But that was via the mouth of Mitchell, and we all know he can't recount a story properly ever. So when it comes to Mitchell and where's Wally R proof, Nathan, just look at the screen for a second.
That big round blue sphere that they showed with the triangle going to it, it didn't matter that it had the R value pasted on it because even Bob, the science guy, came and tried to get away with just having a big blue sphere without an R value labelled or noted in any way, shape or form. Doesn't change the fact that that big blue sphere in his picture is his assumption.
No, mate, that's not the assumption of the R proof. That was the conclusion. So I say again, not much of a gatekeeper, are you? You're always assuming it assumes R before you've even seen it yourself. Way to be unbiased, Nathan.
This measurement's taking place on that big blue sphere he thinks he's standing on. In other words, the very thing he's trying to prove is assuming in the first instance, aka a begging the question fallacy. You don't get to do that on the debate, let alone spend bloody ages going through it thinking you're going to get Bitcoin at the end of it, when you're even disclaiming to your own audience and your opponent, in this case, Mitch, are you begging the question?
Thanks for proving you have no idea yet again. That comment by me was out of context. You're presuming R. Well, fair cop, I am kind of presuming R in this case, presuming R in this case, in this case, in this case, in this case.
Well, if they're going to try and prove R, they can't be using elevation angles. Is that right, QE?
You got that right, brother.
Oh, who woke up QE from his nap? Elevation angles are not the problem. We can just measure them from vertical and then add 90 degrees. Sorry, not sorry, to geometrically stomp on your fairy tale.
What that means is they can't get two straight lines on a sphere Earth unless they assume it's flat, aka the Al-Biruni demonstration that was just shown by Adam. In order to acquire an angle, you need a flat baseline. You use the sextant to get an angle to anything ever, you're going to have to assume it's flat.
Keep spinning your wheels on the old "you're gonna need a flat baseline" unjustified claim. We don't need a flat baseline, but you keep parroting it. Go on. Won't save you.
What is that referred to in this geometry? Well, it's the elevation angle. Elevation from a straight, flat baseline. Something that is never to be acquired on a sphere Earth. Ever.
Yep, keep parroting.
Was the distance between Sydney and Dubbo. I'll tell you what, Mitch, that's the most Australian name, isn't it, for a place? Dubbo.
Dubbo? Nah. Wagga Wagga, Wollongabba, Wollongong, Mudgeeraba. Now they are Aboriginal place names you can't forget.
So all I've got is a website that's just gone, it's got distance as the crow flies and distance by land transport. So that would be another mathematical anomaly I'd see in there, that you can bend little numbers here and there, make big differences when they play out. If you're trying to, we've done with previous distance stuff and horizon stuff, little trims here and there can really help when you're trying to match up to curvature.
Say what now? Like you have done? Are you admitting to diddling numbers to make it match what you want it to be? Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Again, I have no need to do it. If you really want to check the distance, I can provide the details to you privately, under pain of death, or for private verification. I'm happy to. I've got nothing to hide.
He's normally, I don't find the lad very bad to deal with. He's normally pretty good to deal with. But that video was a little bit, it was like claiming victory before any race even started. It's pretty kind of arrogant a little bit.
Well, yes, Brian, I was stepping up the arrogance a little bit because, well, you know, I'm dealing with Mitchell after all, so, you know what I mean.
You get it, Wally.
And the things that he's claiming he should get Bitcoin for as kind of a joke in the thing.
Brian, on that point, you are well wrong. And I am deadly serious. A geosynchronous satellite being eclipsed by the Earth's shadow at midnight at the equinox. Kind of a globe-proof, mate. And I've got about 20 more of these things.
In the video, it's just like, no. I think they're just not living in the reality that we're in. That's the problem.
I agree, Brian. I am most definitely not living in the reality that you're living in.
Yeah. And the two guys, they're sighting it through the telescopes and getting the reflection off these geostationary satellites at 36,000 kilometers away. So I thought, well, how big are they? Do you know what I mean? Because that's really quite far away.
It's only a reflection, mate. It's not being resolved. Oh, and look at this. As they blink back on, one satellite appears to have a large flat area that catches the light and produces a really nice flare.
We don't know. We don't know what the telescope they're using is. They might come back and say, ha ha ha, you said we wouldn't be able to see it. It's too small. Well, actually,
it's too small to resolve, but ha ha ha, we're not claiming we can resolve it. We're saying we can see the light from it. And for that, 1 pixel is enough.
Dun dun dun, look at this giant observatory. And now I've got a light in the sky. Therefore, everything I've said is true. Everything you've said is wrong. And I've proved it just because I can show a little dot.
Yep. How does it feel to be debunked by a dot, Nathan?
Now, I tried to do this with the ISS. The ISS is a bit more difficult because it's gone that much further in terms of the bullshit that surrounds it. You hardwired effect with both anti-flat earthers, flat earthers and globe normies. It's difficult to get around. When you talk about a geostationary satellite, or geosynchronous, I think they prefer to use now. Geostationary doesn't conjure the right imagery, does it? There's a distinction now in terms of the definitions. I've kept up with this over the last 4 years, in case you can't tell.
We can tell you have only the most basic understanding. You do not even know the technical difference between geostationary and geosynchronous. They are both at the orbital height where the orbit is the same speed as the Earth is turning. However, the geostationary satellite is relatively still above the equator. The geosynchronous one is not. They oscillate backwards and forwards and cross the equator, but they stay above the same longitude. Have a look here, as Wolfie had even captured one popping in from the top of the frame, and it even just touches the penumbra, almost about to blink out, and it comes back on again as the Earth's shadow disappears. While Nathan makes a whole pile of excuses for lights in the sky, why don't we just play Astronomy Live as he captured the ISS in a visible pass over Florida. Tell me, Nathan, does that look like a natural object or a man-made one?
Well, once you relinquish that, you're just like, it's another light in the sky. What did the liars say about that light in the sky? Oh, well, they said that they had to launch a rocket up there and now there's a satellite in geosynchronous orbit. All right, okay, orbit and all the rest of the bullshit that you usually lie about. Oh, yeah, right, okay. So we already know it's all lies then, because of some of the vernacular that's being used to describe this light in the sky. So I know that's already lies. No, even if some aspects of it I can't debunk, the 90% that I can means that the rest can be discounted without even any consideration anyway. What are we left with? Left with the light in the sky. Why the necessity for the story? Like I've speculated, because it doesn't match the model. Now, well, you could say, well, how did they know it was going to appear? Well, one of the things that I can hold true is that we've known a lot about what the stars do for a very long period of time. And they're very repetitive. They're cyclical in nature. I've got nothing to go on, so I'm not going to make any assumptions about what they are, those lights, those particular geosynchronous or geostationary quote-unquote satellites. I have no idea what they are, and I love that I don't.
Ever heard of the term willfully ignorant? Nathan Oakley rarefied that right here, and he's proud of being on Mount Stupid. Actually, that just might be the textbook cognitive dissonance in the flesh right there.
You know, all you have is an angle to it after that. When it's not at your zenith, all you have is an angle to it, and that's all you can state. You can't state a height, you can't state anything else. Total or utter rubbish. It's not. That's not what angular. You can measure the angular size of a car in the horizontal. You can't measure the angular. You can't measure. There's no such thing as an angular height. You know, like that. You can't. You can only measure. You can only take an angle. You know, not measure the height of it. It's rubbish.
Oh, you just threw the celestial navigation on the flat Earth right under the bus there, didn't you, Brian?
You get it, Wally.
You can't have a curved adjacent to get an elevation angle. Number one, that kills the whole entire ball dart spinning space monkey religion. Then what you said was, then you can't get the opposite side of that triangle. So there's a failure here in between trigonometry and astronomy at a base level, correct? Or am I off the reservation here?
I'm going with off the reservation, Kiwi.
You're only solving the opposite side of the triangle. Once you get the angles and you get the distance for the adjacent, which must be flat, by the way, there's a height value there for the tip of that, for the apex of the triangle. Right? Correct? Not following what I'm saying here.
It can't be then. Go on.
You're not following what I'm saying. I'm saying the triangle, the elevation height, right? If you're looking at the triangle, you're trying to find the opposite, right? That elevation height. So, do you see where I'm going with this?
And you can't do that on a curved surface.
No, not that you could do it on a curved surface. Even on the flat surface, then you got Brian's problem.
Yep, that's what we've been saying too. Angles to the stars can't give you the distance to the GP unless you know the height of the target. You're gonna need H for that.
You know, the bottom line is this. If you're going to use a sextant for navigation on Earth, you're going to need a globe for that. I'm Bob the Science Guy, and I approve this message.
Finally, I feel Dubbo has been given a bit of a bad rap here today. I mean, Dubbo is kind of famous. The last royal visit, the Queen and Prince Philip were driving to Dubbo on a stinking hot day. Prince Philip looked over at the Queen and said, "Elizabeth, why are you wearing a fox hat on such a hot day?" The Queen replied, "Well, this morning I was talking to Charles, and he said, 'Where are you going?' And I said to Dubbo. He said, 'Wear the fox hat.'" Okay, I'll let myself out, guys. Bye.